Hello and welcome to the last word on Spurs. We are award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. All I'm about to say now will mean nothing to those that are watching this on the rerun. But I firstly have to make a real sincere, humble apology for those that have been waiting for this show to start in the last hour. Just to give anybody that cares what has just happened in this last hour. Unfortunately, our provider for this show in terms of our online studio has decided to upgrade their software, meaning that our wonderful guests couldn't even get into the bloody studio to try and get access to discuss this show we're about to bring you. And I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking, why are we all desperately trying to get here to discuss a defeat to Arsenal like it isn't painful enough? But I know for many out there, they see this as therapy, and many that absolutely love and adore this show. So I want to say firstly a massive, sincere thank you to these wonderful returning regular panelists on this show, Russ Williams, Patrick Tyrant, and the brilliant Darren Hartman, who are here to try and provide you guys some form of therapy, some form of understanding at the moment with regards to what's happening as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. And like I say, we really, truly do appreciate all your support. And I can't be any more apologetic. You've had to wait for over an hour for us to begin. But we are here. We are joining you. And we are going to be reviewing that defeat to Arsenal by 1-0 in, of course, the Premier League. If I can, I'm going to open up with whatever you may think of him. He's our wonderful, brilliant broadcast extraordinaire, Russ Williams, on this show. Russ, firstly, as I will say to all the guys, thank you so much for your patience in this last hour as we've tried to get this thing on the move. But let's discuss, unfortunately, what we had to witness today. A bitter pill to swallow in that 1-0 defeat to Arsenal for Spurs, who again suffer more Derby Day misery. For many, a real positive first 45, which was followed by a largely uneventful second half to some degree. But Arsenal do take the points thanks to Gabriel's headed winner from another set piece. Another game that seems all too much of the same term, where we have done all right, not taking our chances, conceding in a manner you feel is really avoidable. And I feel, again, this is like another painful day in the rebuild. Russ, what was your thoughts on that 1-0 defeat to Arsenal?
Disappointing, but look, they're streetwise. They know how to play games. They know how to see them out. They're a long way down the road on their rebuild. Having said that, they're no Man City, in my opinion, and they're also no Liverpool. I think both of those clubs are better football teams than Arsenal, but that's my opinion. We're talking about us. I mean, look, it's a disappointing result. And, there is a rationality that's irrational about what we think about this fixture, because, even our own manager was saying, and he was called out, but I think he was saying every game we should treat with the intensity. Well, I don't think we quite saw that today, that we approach the Arsenal game against our biggest rivals. And if we want to be successful, we've got to do that. The problem is, for me, is the record over the last 29 games. Up until today, 1.4 points per game over 28 games. So obviously it's probably a tiny smidgen less than that after today. I think our XG was 0.7 or something today. But we've clearly got a reputation for being an attacking football team. The problem is we're not very good at that, based on the evidence, and we're also not very good at defending most of the time. When we're in midfield and we get to the edge of the box, we win the game there. But we can't seem to do anything with the ball when we're getting near the opposition penalty area. We go back into this sort of sideways, passing backwards, safe passes, not enough movement. I mean, listen, Rick, there is so much that you could say, but really it's groundhog Spurs. It's what we're used to. We cannot, looking forward, and I know we're going to hear Ange for a few minutes from the press conference and go through that. In my opinion, we cannot be a club that keeps firing managers over and over and over again, because we never actually get anywhere. What we've got is a football team that's a bit like an open sore, and it's painful. And it just, we think, starts to heal over. And then it opens up again, and ouch, it's painful again. So this will all come down, in my opinion, to the attitude of Daniel Levy and the board and the footballing powers that be at the football club, and how long they are prepared to let the rebuild go on. And we've got to believe in it, because we've got nothing else much to believe in at the moment. Or will they do what they've done many, many times before and pull the trigger? There will be people watching and listening to this who will say it's ridiculous to even talk about getting rid of Ange. We're not talking about getting rid of him. What we're doing is we're saying, is what he is doing now as the head coach of our football club the right thing? Are we prepared to stick with the pain to get the glory ultimately with this manager? Or is the reality he might be a little bit out of his depth, he might be a little bit stubborn, and no matter how he tries with this kind of football, which for me is hero to zero, you're either a hero with this football if it works, or you're a zero, and that's the danger. For me, those are the conundrums. And I think what we've seen finally, Rick, and thank you for letting me have a little say, what we didn't sign in the summer in terms of first team players, ready for action, high quality players, it's quite obvious in a couple of positions that we should have signed people. It's all very well having youth and saying, well, we're building for the future with youth. If you believe in them that much, play them. That's what I would say. So there's a whole myriad of issues, and to be 13th in the Premier League after only 4 games, it doesn't look good. Difficult game in the EFL away at Coventry, Brentford up next, who gave City the fright of their lives. There is no easy game, as you always say, Rick, in the Premier League. He needs a string of wins. That's what I would say now. No two ways about it. He needs a string of wins.
Russ, thank you so much. Can I just say again, thank you so much to our watching audience here. And again, I will again apologise for those that missed it. We've got nearly over 3,000 or 4,000 of you that are coming in as we speak. Once again, sincere, humble apologies. Massive, massive technical issues that have really disrupted us from starting on time, which we wanted to do. I know many joke and laugh that we're not great in terms of being punctual and starting on time on the show. I know we have the odd 5-10 minute delay, but to be over an hour again, I can't apologise enough. And I want to say again, a massive thank you to these wonderful guests that come on this show. They give up so much of their own spare time and are having to review a result of that nature against our bitter rivals. I will let Pat settle in for a second, and I'll come to Dow. Dow, it does end Spurs 0, Arsenal 1. I mean, look, Ange's side really struggled to create chances, and in the end, it came down to a set piece, which is all too a familiar story of last season. Spurs have now lost 3 home games in a row to Arsenal. Simply not good enough. And I think the one thing I would say, and we'll get Pat's take on it as well, because Pat was there, is that for me, the worst thing was how flat the atmosphere did become in that second half, almost because it was felt amongst supporters that we weren't really going to get back into that game, and it was never going to happen. I mean, Dale, how do you reflect on this result for you? Because I want to say this in the most politest way. You are one of the most positive contributors and regular guests that we have on Last Word on Spurs here. And I'm sure you can understand how testing this is for a lot of our wonderful, adoring, loyal fan base.
I hear it, Rick. I hear all the issues. I hear everyone's frustrations, everyone's upset. And today was a hard watch. And as Spurs fans, this game matters to us. This one really matters. This is bragging rights to the office. My phone's not stopped ringing all day. Every Spurs fan's going through it. We know that. And I think, Russ, you made some great points about the board and about how we're in transition, where we use the same terms about the rebuild and the growth and what we're trying to achieve. And I think as fans, we've got to decide what we're doing as well. I look at our social media right now, and God bless our fan base. We're very angry. A lot of people want Ange out. A lot of people have had enough. A lot of people are throwing players under the bus. And I feel that if we're going to go on this journey, we're going to have to do it as a unit. And right now, we are not a unit. We're as much disjointed on the pitch as we are off the pitch. And you could feel it in the stadium today. Pat, I know you give us more insight on that, how you felt from it. But just watching the social media, talking to Spurs fans, I feel like sometimes I'm a voice on my own when I'm going, it's not as bad as people think it is. It's not as dire as people think it is. And I think sometimes it's grass greener on the other side. When you look at the bigger picture and go, okay, we get rid of Ange tomorrow. Great. What do we do from there? What is the plan? And I think sometimes in football, we're too quick to press the panic button, and we're too quick to look at somebody else. It's like we see others in a better situation than us. And the sad thing about our situation is we're looking at our neighbours. We're looking at Arsenal. We're looking at what they're achieving right now, and it's kicking us in the face, and it's hurting us, and it's winding us up. But the one thing that has been said on this show a number of times, is look at what Arsenal did in their process with Arteta. A lot of their fans were doing what our fans are doing now. Ange out. They wanted Arteta out. They wanted him out because they couldn't see the vision. They were finishing 8th. They were finishing 5th. They didn't see consistency in their play. They didn't want it. I think as Spurs fans right now, I'm on the side of the line, and I'm going to stand here solid going, I don't want Ange to go anywhere. I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. I do feel that we're still making progress. It may not be the speed that people want it to be at, but progress is being made. There are elements in the game that if they improve with a 5-10% that they need to improve at, Spurs are going to do someone damage. But if they don't, we will have a problem. And I think we have to give it more legs. We can't press the panic button now. We have to give it more time. And I think Ange needs more time. Rick, you said about we conceded from a corner again. I think that narrative that we're putting on us is a problem as well. It's not a case that every corner is a goal. In football, people score from corners. It's what happens. And today, Arsenal worked a different system. Everyone's looking at Vicario. Vicario wasn't the problem. Someone lost their man. Bentancur and Romero, they need to look at that video and go, we lost our man. Our man was there. We lost their big centre half in the middle of our box. That's
Can I say one thing, Dal? Let you come back in and we'll go to Pat.
Yeah.
What doesn't help is how flappy Vicario is in the 6-yard box. He is not a dominant figure. And look, I was all for Vicario last season. I thought up until Goodison Park away, and I don't think it was an issue really with Vicario. I think he was maybe untested when it came to having players around him in the box. But the biggest worry is, Dal, and I hate to use Gary Neville as a figurehead for a Last Word on Spurs show, but he said that you could smell the fear around the 6-yard box in the defence every time there was a corner, how flappy he was. And it just felt that a lot of the time Vicario was more concerned about the players around him than what was actually going on during the game. We'll come on to the goal in itself, but come back on that, Dale, and then we'll go to Pat to get his thoughts on that.
It's a great comment to make. Now, when you look at that, if Vicario is flapping and he's worried about the player in front of him, what we have to then do as Spurs is go, who's getting the ball then? If you're a centre-half, I use Chelsea as a great example. John Terry was always the man who went for the ball. Regardless of what was going on, Terry's job was to get his head on it. When we had Kane before, most of the corners, Kane would win the header. We have to decide who is doing that job. And if he's not in our back four, he needs to be there. I've heard that Dragison's phenomenal in the air. If we need to start implementing him in our starting 11, if that makes us more comfortable at corners and defending high balls, that's what we need to do. And I think that's why I'm at the point of going, there's still progress to be made with this system. And we can't just throw everyone under the bus now. And last year, Vicario was a great keeper. When he got signed, people raving about him. Now he's flapping at corners and people want to throw him under the bus. He needs a bit more support then from his back four. He needs support. We need to work on that. I've seen what they're doing in training where they're hitting him harder and they're on his case. If that's the progress we need to make, let's go on the journey. Right now, we need to start looking at the journey. And I think right now, the panic button's being hit by far too many people. There are issues, and I'm not going to hide away from the issues, and I'm going to address some that I feel need to be addressed. But panicking and throwing us and our team under the bus is not what we need to do right now. 13th right now in the league is a problem, but it is only 4 games, people. It's only 4 games.
Dal, we know you know how much we love you on this show, and this is why we love having you on, and we'd love it to be more regular. Patty will come to you if we can. Pat, you was there earlier today at the ground. Look, it was a 3rd consecutive defeat, home defeat to Arsenal, which is all the more frustrating for Spurs because it felt like a real missed opportunity, Pat, on the day, for all the possession and the openings against Spurs failed to take advantage, and yet another frustrating afternoon, which almost felt a real familiar script now that we're talking about, because it just tries, from my perspective, that we are trying to make this perfect goal happen time after time after time. And again, Arsenal kind of seemed to know that. They were very streetwise. And I thought Arsenal, they knew how Spurs were going to play. They were willing to wait, sit for opportunity. They had that low block for most of the game. But the reality is that we almost, to some degree, I think, played into their hands. I thought every time Arsenal got forward, they looked dangerous. Pat, give me your thoughts. You were at the game. Sorry we've kept you waiting there. Thoughts on it for you, Patty?
You know what? First and foremost, I hope all you guys can hear me because I've had a nightmare today trying to jump on the stream. I don't know what Apple have done. I use an iPad Pro, never had any issues, recorded 1 million streams, and they've somehow updated the software in the background, and now I'm having to use the StreamYard app, and it's really glitchy. So I'm not hearing you guys clearly. So I don't know if you guys can hear me clearly. And it's been a shit show of a day, man. First and foremost, obviously the North London derby, and now this. So I apologise to everyone. You know, we're an hour late. We don't want to keep you guys waiting, especially after such a monumentous game and a poor result. But going into the game, I was confident, Ricky and Russ and Dal. Really confident. Thought this is the best time to play Arsenal. They hadn't been at their best. I thought our performances were good. They maybe we hadn't got the results we wanted, and I felt confident. No Rice, no Odegaard. Asserting ourselves into this game. I hope that with Solanke back and Mickey van der Ven, this would be the game where it all clicked and all came together. But you know, like last year, this year, I've time and time again, I've said how I felt on here. I've been chastised. I've said about the youngsters that I needed 3 first-team starters to come in and really improve this team. You guys in the comments and the chats told me that, you know, Archie Gray and Lucas Bergveld are good enough and are ready and will start. Today, North London derby at home, these guys didn't even, let alone start, they didn't even get on the pitch. We spent 40 mil on Archie Gray. Lucas Bergveld, you guys said he was a wonder kid and all of this crap. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove and it's a big North London derby and we need at least 1 goal, these guys weren't trusted. So it goes to show, like you guys told me, yeah, Ange believes in these guys and this and that. They didn't even touch the pitch for 15 seconds.
I don't know, Pat, just to come in there, you're referring to a portion, obviously not everybody, but a portion.
Yeah, a portion. When I say stuff, and I think I talk from the heart, and I think I talk for a good portion of the fan base. Not everyone, of course I don't. We're all not always going to agree on everything. But I'm told, oh, you're negative. You know, you don't talk for me, and But at the end of the day, in a game like this, where we needed a bit of quality, where we had a lot of the ball, but weren't really turning the screws and really putting them under pressure. We bring on Werner. We bring on guys that just. Odegaard, we spent 30 million on him. And I said it last week or the week before. I struggle to believe in all of world football that we couldn't have got a better winger for 30 million. Like, I'm sorry, like the guy's just not it right now. And he may be good in 2 or 3 years, but in 2 or 3 years' time, we're not going to get the results we needed today to win that game. That game, they were there for the taking. And I know Arsenal are a good team. Don't get me wrong, they're a fantastic team, but they were there for the taking. They were. And we just didn't really give it to them. 64% possession, no big chances created, all of the ball, a lot of the ball in the final third, more corners than them. In all the stats where you would look at the game and say, you know, if you were just a stat man and you looked at the stats, you would say, yeah, you know what, we had a good game, we played well. But when you really break it down, we didn't really play well. We had a lot of the ball, and this is what the teams will do. Teams that trust their defense, like Arsenal, who are resolute, compact, know how to defend as a unit, have really good defensive players, they'll let us do what we do because we're all huff and no puff. When push comes to shove, we've got Brennan Johnson taking tame shots, Kulusevski taking shots from outside the box, Sarr coming on and taking P-rollers. Like, none of these are really testing the keeper, and we could do that all day. We could have played till 10 p.m. tonight and still wouldn't have scored. And again, I had people on my Twitter saying, you guys also need to get behind the team, and the atmosphere was flat. The team need to give us something to get behind as well. It goes both ways. And if we can see that they're not doing anything for us to get behind, then I'm sorry, it's almost like an oxymoron, isn't it? We can't get behind if we don't see anything to get behind. So I'm just really frustrated because, like, a lot of the stuff that we all said, not all of us, but a lot of us that can see between the lines, these guys, yes, they may be good in 2 or 3 years' time, but we need results right now. And Archie Gray, Lucas Bergveld, Odegaard, you know, that's 3 19, 20-year-olds. Like, they're not going to turn and win the games. And today was a perfect example. Like, they were there for the taking, but we just didn't have the quality to break them down. And I don't know. I look at Ange, and if it is Ange that believes in these guys, and if it is Ange that wanted these guys, then I question his talent ID, because these guys aren't good enough. I'm sorry. That's the reality of it. Like, we've just got to call a spade a spade. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, they may be good in 2 or 3 years. We're always 2 or 3 years away. 2 or 3 years away is now. And if I look at the guys that we signed 2 or 3 years ago to start now, they're all gone. Valise on loan hasn't made it. You look at, I don't know, who else can we talk about? Emerson Royale's gone. I can list and name all these guys that just were essentially cheap bargain buys that were meant to come good, high ceiling, low cost. None of them have worked out. And it's the same thing again today. And it's frustrating because, yeah, a 1-0 loss against a good team, obviously, you know, we didn't get battered. We didn't get taken to the. It was a game that we were in, but it was also a game that I didn't feel we ever had a chance of winning, if that makes sense. I don't know, and I do question Ange because there was no patterns of play today. There was no variety in our build-up. There was no variety in our attack intent. We signed Dominic Solanke, a guy who thrives off balls into the box, who thrives off crosses. And again, the wingers just had no delivery to actually pinpoint and cut him out and get the ball to him. Maddison looked off it. Then why not bring on Lucas Bergveld earlier? When we took off Maddison, we brought on Timo Werner. I don't understand the logic behind that. I'm sorry, it just doesn't make any sense. I don't know. There's a lot going on. And again, Vicario last year, I hate to say it, when Vicario was signed, I was going crazy. I wanted David Raya. You guys know I wanted David Raya. I'm sorry, David Raya is the better goalkeeper. Again, let's call a spade a spade. David Raya is solid, doesn't flap at crosses, is more commanding in his box. I just don't get some of the fan base. They just don't like to talk the truth. And if we always continue down this road of signing a nearly man and the cheaper options, this is what we get. You know, like Russ said, we're 4 games in and we're sitting 13th. It's embarrassing. I'm not going to lie. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, if I can just say, Pat, on that point there, everyone's made their intros. We're going to hear from Ange Postecoglou in a second in what he did say post-match. But just to bring in those stats, as Pat mentioned earlier, in terms of that game, I mean, look, stats don't tell the full picture, but Spurs did have 15 shots to Arsenal's 7. They had 5 on target to Arsenal's 4, 29 touches in the box for Tottenham to 23 of Arsenal's. Keeper saves, Raya was the busier keeper just with 5-3. Spurs' block shot 6-3. Corner-wise, Spurs did edge it, but of course Arsenal scored from that decisive corner with them counting up 6. Aerial duels 1, Arsenal just edged that 16-14, and Spurs dominated possession 63% to 36. I mean, the XG, for those that do have a care about XG, 0.81 to 0.85, I think it tells you a lot about both teams, about how low the XG was, given the nature of the chances created. There wasn't many, you'd say, real clear-cut golden opportunities to score. As Russ said at the very top of this show, the upshot is that Spurs now have 1 win from the opening 4 matches, coming against pointless Everton and host Brentford next weekend on the back of consecutive defeats. Although, again, I'll remind you, for those that know how much this means to me, we've got Coventry there in the Carabao Cup on Wednesday, squeezed into the middle, of course, of a busy week for Spurs. Some may argue it's far too early to talk of Postecoglou being under pressure, but just to remind you that the Australian said back in April that he expected Tottenham, this was his words, to be in a title challenge this season. And Spurs already trail Arsenal by 6 points and Man City by 8. And as we know, those gaps will widen if Spurs do not start picking up results quickly, which may leave Ange to maybe recollaborate his aims for the campaign. In regards to Arteta and what you maybe thought about Arsenal's tactics with relation to how they set up, look, they did what was necessary to get the win. There was no Odegaard there to help dominate the ball. There was no Rice to help them press higher up the pitch. It was a deep block counter, winning corners from finding Havertz direct and set pieces that get the win, and top tactical flexibility. Dow touched upon the set pieces there. Look, a problem that really, Les Dow said, really hasn't been an issue really this season, but crept its way back in as Gabriel's header did settle the score. And it was far too easy, and those can actually see it here for our watching audience, that he was allowed to rise high. Romero guilty of leaving his man, not for the first time this season. Yes, Spurs could maybe point to Gabriel's slight push on Romero's back beforehand, but it was not enough in the interest of VAR to intervene. And the Argentine and Romero has built a reputation on aggressiveness and competitiveness, you should argue, should have been able to respond and dealt better. And as much as it was tempting to blame Romero, Spurs' weakness at set pieces is a collective problem. And as Dow said, it's not all just down to one player. It has become a frequently concerned issue week upon week in terms of disorganised dead balls under Postecoglou. They've now conceded 9 times on set pieces in the top flight, and an issue which Postecoglou reportedly dismissed the suggestion that Spurs had an issue last season. But what we are going to do, let's bring in Ange's thoughts on the back of this game today. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rejoin you once Ange has given his thoughts. So we're going to try and bring it in now if we can. Ange Postecoglou's presser, and we'll be back with you after this.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I still think we had some good opportunities, but yeah, we could have had so many more. We just wasted some of our good play with, similar to the other games where we just haven't really had that sort of conviction in the front third to take advantage of whether it's us winning the ball back or getting into that front third and nothing coming of it. So, and you kind of keep opposition teams in the game when you do that. Yes, like I said, we handled them well for the most part, but we switched off for one, and you pay a price, and that's what happens. Like I said, it's always going to be a tight game, fine margins in these kind of games, and they took their key moment, and we didn't. Yeah, look, I think we've handled them okay. Even today, I thought we handled them. They're obviously a very big threat from set pieces, and but it only takes one, and like it wasn't just Romero, but a couple of others switched off as well, and the delivery was spot on, and Gabriel's always a threat in those situations. So we paid a price for it. Yeah, I thought Dom worked hard, but like I said, he hasn't played for over a month. Only second game of the year, so I just thought there was a lot of times where, if we just had a bit more, like I said, belief, conviction in that front third, that we could have made so much more of our play to create really good opportunities, and even the ones we did, we didn't. Again, like I said, we lacked some real conviction in our execution to really, make the most of them. Oh, just got to keep working at it, mate. That's my job. I've just got to keep, giving the feedback to the guys, trying to guide them in the right way to make them see that, for all our dominance in the game, you need to really be, clear-headed in those kind of moments, and that's my role to try and, guide them in the right way. Look, I know. Look, I know. For some reason, people think I don't care about set pieces, and it's a narrative that you can keep going on for ages and ages. I understand that. Like I said, we work on them all the time, like we do at every other team. You know that they're a threat. As I said, for the most part, we handled them really well today, but we switched off for one, and we paid a price. And you learn from that, and you move on. But it is what it is, Matt. It's like it's my burden to carry, mate, and I'm happy to do that. It's not like I've always said. For me, there's a bigger picture that's at play here that's much more important than the finer details of us getting to where we want to. And for us, the way forward is to, as I said, try and turn the football we're playing into now into something meaningful.
Hi, Ange. Last time you played Arsenal, remember afterwards you spoke about Romero being outstanding and you needed to get a bit of him into the others. Did you see a bit more of that from the other players today?
I don't know, to a certain extent. Look, we're a team that's, I think progressing in many areas, and with all that sort of progress, there's always kind of new challenges and new things that you need to overcome. And as I said, when I look at the 4 games in isolation this year, our football's probably been more consistent and more compelling than it was their first 4 games last year. But obviously the results don't reflect that, and so I think we've made progress in certain areas, but there's other areas, like I said, we still need to improve on, and that's my job to kind of fill those gaps as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So that was Ange Postecoglou there, obviously looking very disgruntled, gutted, maybe the right word to use. He does look downbeat. Naturally, look, he does care. I think he's a man that does wear his heart absolutely on his sleeve. And it is time to maybe have just a quick chat about where we are just on Ange Postecoglou. And we don't want it completely to derail the show. But I want to try and make the show in the interest of fair balance. And look, I think, again, for many that watch and tune into Last Word on Spurs, we want to provide as best as possible, a fair balance, but also real show. So it would be unfair to try and kid you, to try and tell you things that aren't the case. So we want to try and be real and where we are. So we'll have a quick chat with regards to the manager, and then we'll go into some of the key match incidents. Dal, I'm going to come to you first, then I'll revert to Russ and then Pat. In terms of where we are in terms of the form at the moment, which again, many are maybe concerned about, Spurs have taken 15 points from our last 14 Premier League games. They're actually now have only won 13 out of their last 32 games in total. 10 of those wins have come against teams below 10th in the table. And they've only beaten one top 10 side since December the 10th, 2023. That was Aston Villa 4-0. They've only kept 4 clean sheets in their last 33 games. And for those that want to look at a smaller pool, Spurs have only won 5 out of their last 15 Premier League games. All those 5 wins come against bottom 5 teams: Everton, Sheffield United, Burnley, Notts Forest, Luton. The current record this season stands: played 4, won 1, drawn 1, lost 2. 4 games, 4 points. This is Tottenham's worst start to a season in 9 years. Del, is this a Tottenham side that are in the midst of a rebuild and transition? Or is this a manager that simply isn't really getting to grips with the job at Tottenham? What is it for you?
For me, it's a rebuild. That's where I'm at right now. I don't think Ange has lost it. I don't think that he doesn't know what he's doing. And a lot of people, he's out of it there if he hasn't got it. You know what? Time will tell. And this is when the time is going to start telling, because as Russ pointed out, there's been a number of games now. This isn't a new thing. And people are really focused on that. Everyone's looking at the stats. Everyone's looking at the progress and looking at the development and looking at the league table. 13th doesn't sit pretty for anybody. And the panic buttons get pressed. I'm going to keep using that term, panic, because that's what I feel we're doing right now. We are panicking. And I think the players are panicking on the pitch. Looking at prime examples of a Brennan Johnson, he doesn't look confident at all on the ball. He doesn't look like he wants to beat a man. He's shooting, as Pat said, they're powder puff because he's not got confidence in him. You look at someone like James Maddison, not going to the World Cup, coming back into the side, loss of form end of the season. He doesn't look like he's got it right now. He's trying to will himself back into form, but it's not happening. And I know Patrick alluded to the squad depth and about the youngsters that have been bought. And I think as Spurs fans, we've got to be careful. A lot of these guys haven't played yet. And if they look at the social media that we're putting out into this world, we're killing them before they play the game. And I'm like, maybe they are good enough. Let's give them a chance, but let's not put the whole world on them with pressure. And I think that's what we do as a fan base, is that there's so much pressure and there's so much tension and we're so wired and we're so riled. And I think it's something we need to look at and go, what do we want to achieve? What are we aiming for? And people say top 4 winning. And just said quite openly, second season, I win something. Right now, we're not out of anything yet. It's 4 games in. Let's go on this journey still. Let's look at what we can achieve. I don't think that this is manager needs to be kicked out. I don't think that's the case. But that's just me. And I represent one opinion. And there's going to be some people that are going to agree with me and go, yes, Hartman, I love what you're saying. I agree. There's going to be some that think I'm crazy and that think that Ange needs to be sacked and I need to find a new team. But that's what I love about football, is we all have very different opinions. And when we come together, I think first and foremost is we're willing our team to win. All of our intention should be the betterment of our team, the betterment of our players, the betterment of our squad. And Pat said it today. The team didn't give us anything. When we needed something to lift us vocally, they didn't give us anything. But there's that old feeling as well, is if you need me, I'm going to be there for you. If you're low, I'm going to lift you. And I think we've got to find that balance as a unit, as a team, as a fan base, because right now our Spurs needs us. Our manager needs us. Our players need us. And if we're going to get out of it what we want, which is silverware, which is an improvement in performances, the minute someone does something wrong, we can't kill them. We can't jump on their back. We have to kill them with kindness right now. That's my take. Kill them with kindness, boost and help, because if we don't do that, gee whiz, where are we going to be? Someone tell me who's going to be the new manager. Someone tell me who's going to do what with this squad, because ultimately we're just creating our own problems. And that's something we need to look at too. But right now, I don't want him to go anywhere. I don't think he should go anywhere. I still think we're in a process, but I could be on my own in that theory.
No, you're not on your own. Look, there's many out there that do feel we'll be fine. This is what a rebuild looks like, and many that are hugely disappointed. And synergy does take time. But, you know, I'll come to you, Russ. You know, when you again look at those stats, which I'm pretty reading at the moment, it is 10 points from our last 11 games in the Premier League. And they came from matches against the 3 promoted teams, Leicester, Sheffield United, Burnley and Everton. 0 points from Arsenal twice, both at home. Newcastle twice. Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City. It's not as simple as good teams or good coaches have figured Ange out, but it needs to be, I think, some chat around maybe, you know, the element of how we're getting beaten. And I think that is a concern. You know, there were injuries last season. It is a rebuild, but, you know, you look at some of the signings that we've made to sign Werner again back after what we saw last season. And I think, again, many will look at the London derbies this season and maybe last season again, you maybe take Fulham out of it. But 7 London derbies under Ange, West Ham, Chelsea, Arsenal, 0 wins, 2 draws, 5 losses. Where are you, Russ, in this rebuild under Ange? Is he under pressure for you?
Yes, he is. Look at the comments. He's under big pressure. And excuse me, I'm afraid when I listen to that press conference, it's a lot of it is a word salad, really. Somebody commented waffle, and it tends to be the same stuff. But to be a successful manager, we all know you have to have the talented players who can carry out your experience and what you want as a coach. Now, the last rebuild we had at Tottenham was under Maurizio Pochettino. We ended up in a Champions League final and could have, with a bit of luck, actually won the Premier League. But that's history. We didn't, okay? We all know that. So this, in comparison, this rebuild is quite a way behind the Pochettino rebuild. But if you think back, he talked when we played Man City in the game that, you know, a lot of people weren't fussed that we were going to lose. He talked about a culture in the club. Now, he's not the first manager to have thought about that and actually voiced it and won very famously. So in the summer, we expect him to bring in a number 6. We expect him to bring in a top striker. Now, Dominic Solanke's only played for us twice. He's missed a couple of sitters, if I'm going to be really harsh on him. But right now, to my eyes, he's not 20 to 25 goals a season. I mean, that is for the birds. We've got Ange Postecoglou, who I suspect spoke and requested certain players. It would then go to the committee, to the chairman. The manager would have a bit of input with the sporting director, director of football. But, you know, I think it's very difficult to negotiate with a tiger when your head's in his jaws. And I think it's a bit like that working under this regime at Spurs. And people say, well, this chairman and board, they don't want Spurs to win anything. I think they do. They just don't know how to provide the tools to the managers to help them do it. And history proves that. So, you know, I think he's in a really difficult situation. Big game against Brentford coming up in the Premier League. I think the Coventry game now is absolutely huge in terms of Ange Postecoglou. He's expected to win that and win it well, because the first season, we know the Fulham game was a complete misreading of the situation. And he has said publicly very, very recently, I always win a trophy in my second season. Well, you know, that's quite a statement given what we're looking at now in terms of how we play, where we can't really defend, we can't score goals. There's big question marks over certain players. I mean, if you're James Maddison, 15 minutes to go in a North London derby, you're hauled off and Timo Werner comes on for you, surely you've got to look in the mirror, James, if you're watching, and say, well, yeah, that shouldn't have happened. I mean, there are so many players in this current team who are not performing at the level that we were told they would perform at. We've seen glimpses of, for example, of them performing. And this does not help the manager. It's his job, of course, with the coaches to get the best out of the players. We need to score goals, because otherwise we're in for a very, very miserable time. And really, I'm not sure we have the ammo nor the playing style at the moment. We've got to use the sides. If you've got Dominic Solanke in there, he's not the fastest striker, but he can head a football, play to his strengths, you know, if that's what we've got. I was in the Ivan Toney camp. don't mind admitting it. Said it on this show many, many times. I think he's crafty. I think he's got guile. I think he's got superb skill. But now he's off in Saudi Arabia, put his feet up in between games and, counting his money, and good luck to him. But, we don't know, because no one's ever asked the question, did you want to sign Ange at the beginning of the transfer window or towards the end of last season, Ivan Toney? Because we were told, oh no, Dominic Solanke has always been a target for Tottenham Hotspur, right?
Yep.
But the stats don't bear that out at all, as far as Dominic is concerned at the moment. Now, he could rip it up and score 30 goals before the end of the season. Please God, he does, because it means we'll be doing really well and we might win a trophy. But I'm not convinced. And I think, a lot of people are commenting right now, are watching us and just going, well, Romero, he's had his head turned and what have you. You have to say, in big games, numerous mistakes have cost us big points.
Yep.
And you have to ask the question, why? And then we go on social media tonight and we see the translation of a comment about his journey back from international duty, how he's had to pay for his own ticket and he's caught a fever and, was playing today with a fever. Well, if he's got a fever, somebody at the club should have noticed and certainly would have asked him if he was fit and shouldn't have played him. Get Draguzin, who's very good in the area. It just seems to me that there's an awful lot of things in this jigsaw of the football club that we love that, isn't going well. I mean, Sonny, another one. What's happened? What's happened to him?
And it's a game for us where you want your captains, your leaders,
absolutely,
your inspirational players to turn up.
But why are my colleagues, most of them, not asking Ange Postecoglou those questions? It's all right saying, oh, yeah, well, Romero lost concentration. It cost us, but he's a good bloke, really, I mean, this is professional football at the top level. Yeah. And we can't afford passengers, and whether that's a manager or players, and we could have spent more money in the summer.
The thing is, Russ, when you, on this point you just said there, Russ, when you establish this squad coming over to Pat now, that you are reliant really on an 11 to 12, 13 players to step up, and 3, 4, 5 of those players don't, it really impacts the rest of the team. It does. And Pat, I did get your thoughts on Ange. We do need to go for a break as well on this show again. Where we are right now, Pat, 3 consecutive North London derby losses at home, 9 games winless, these the big 6, 4 points from 4 games. It's a horrible start to a season. Many would say it's been another year other than the average age of the squad, and the vibes really haven't improved. And the thing I would just say is it's not a sucker punch, Pat, if this keeps on happening. So, Pat, where are we under Ange for you? I know we had this discussion, it feels weekly on here at the moment, and can I just say this, I don't think we're a reactive channel. I think we're a channel that is considered, measured, wants to give things time. But again, when you look at the nature of the form and the results, as Russ says, the viewers and the listeners, and we had over 100 questions come into this show that we're trying to formulate in regards to what I'm asking the guys here. The results and the noise around it, Pat, says a lot. So where are we, Pat, for you under Ange at the moment?
Listen, I want it to work. I really do. I do like Ange. Foolishly, maybe. I do like him, and I really want it to work because I'm with Russ and Darren. We can't keep hiring and firing managers. We really can't. At some point, you got to stick or twist, and we need to stick with Ange. But he isn't making it easy for himself. And his presser today, he just looked shot of confidence. He looked like it's just rinse and repeat. The same thing he said today is the same thing he said last week and the week before and the week before. You may as well have just copied and pasted it from last week and the previous weeks. And it's almost like, I don't believe you anymore. So how were the players and how were the fans? And I don't know, we're very easy to play against because for all the possession that we have, it's really lackluster. Like, we're not really testing the goalkeeper. We're not really putting the team under pressure. I think first half against Leicester away, we are really good. Probably the first half against Newcastle, we were really good. Other than that, yeah, we've had all of the ball, but we've never really put the opposition under any pressure. And like you said, those stats, when you read them out against the big 6 and the London derbies, they're absolutely woeful. And I understand it's a rebuild and this and that, but how long do these rebuilds go on for? And my question is to anyone on here, and anyone in the comments, when you as a manager have co-signed Brennan Johnson, Timo Werner, Odegaard, Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, I do question your talent ID. I'm sorry. Those guys are not, in my opinion, good enough for us to really cement ourselves as a top 4 club and win things. And some people may say I'm being harsh. Some people may say I'm going too early. But I'm looking at it right now. We played an Arsenal team who are probably one of the best teams in Europe, second best team in the league comfortably. And we didn't really lay a glove on them. And it's because of the guys that we were bringing on, or that we signed. Maddison, fantastic. Solanke, I think that's a good signing. Mickey van der Ven, good signing. For me, the jury's out on Vicario. I'm sorry to say it. I think last year, for the first half of the season, he looked fantastic. Since then, he's been a bit shaky, and today he didn't cover himself in glory. I still don't understand why every time he's insistent on playing out from the back when sometimes it's not on, and he causes defenders panic and problems instead of just booting the ball. Like, sometimes use your common sense. I don't know if Ange is drilling it into them that we have to play out from the back by all means necessary. But honestly, a couple of times he gave me a heart attack. Like, sometimes just boot the ball away, and then we go again. And so the jury's out for me on Ange and his talent ID. The jury's out for me on Ange and his tactical flexibility, and is also his tactics and setups. We're very easy to play against the good teams. Arsenal let us have all of the ball because they knew at one point they would have 1 or 2 good chances. And the difference is they're clinical and we're not. And the difference is they can keep a clean sheet and we can't. And that's the level that we're trying to get to if we want to be a good team. And I understand it takes time, but also you have to sign better players for it to take that time. When Arsenal wanted to go out and challenge, they went and got Declan Rice. They went out and got Mourinho. They went out and got Timber. We haven't signed anyone of that ilk yet. Let's just be honest. So, I don't know. I just can't. I can't look at this with confidence right now. Obviously, I'm a fan. I'm going to get behind my team. I'm going to want the best. Yep. But when I look at some of the players that we've signed, I am really scared. I am really worried. And the track record will go back and, we can look at it. Juan Foyth, we signed him at 19 years old. Clinton NG, we signed him 22 years old. Wimmer, 22 years old when we signed him. Vincent Janssen, 22. George Kevin Nkudu, 21 when we signed him. Steven Bergwijn, 22 when we signed him. Ryan Sessegnon, 19. Jack Clark, 18. And the reason why I'm saying these names is because they're all duds. They're all people that have failed. And it looks like we're doing the same thing again and again and again. Give me some ready-made players that can come in and make a difference. And that's not what we've done. And this is why,
The worrying thing, Pat, the worrying thing for me is that, Graham Bergvall, for what we're being told are the players for the now, they couldn't get on the pitch today, Pat. They couldn't get on the pitch. These are players that we're being told are for the now.
We're seeing all these, we're so impressed by them in training that we're not going out for another player. So why didn't they play today then? This is what I mean about the bullshit, toxic positivity that we see sometimes. And you've got to read between the lines and obviously use your own common sense. Because if they were that good, they would have been on the pitch today making the difference. So, I don't know, man.
I'm going to say, that's nothing against the kids. That's nothing. It's nothing against them. This is nothing against Bergvall and Gray, who I think will be great in the future. But again, it's again a situation where are we buying players that are going to directly, as you say, Pat, affect the now? That is the biggest problem.
Exactly, that's it. And, the Premier League is relentless. There's no easy games, like Russ said. And Brentford Sunday, it's next week now, but probably by the time people hear this on the rerun, it will be the week coming this week. Trust me, that's not going to be an easy game.
Don't forget commentary in the cup, Pat. Don't forget commentary in the cup. This is a big week for Tottenham. It's a massive week for the football club. When that cup competition, to me, people are like even saying this on the back of that Arsenal defeat. To me personally, that commentary game means as much, if not more, than the Arsenal game to me, just because of the nature of Spurs and the way in which the season will play out. They've got more of a better chance to go and hopefully win a cup competition than actually going in the league really progress. But we shall see. I am very conscious of time. I mean, look, again, for many that want to look at that fair balance piece, which I'll try and give to this show, because I want to make the show, look, I don't want it to be draining. I want many to try and enjoy the show as much as they can under the circumstances. But a good indicator, I think, of where we are in the process right now is that, look, we're good enough to force a top team to play on the back foot, i.e. Arsenal. Today we have 65% possession, but not mature enough and lacking the quality to really punish them, hence the 0.71 XG. And it's really frustrating because you can clearly see what it's missing. And it is what it is at the moment. And I know, again, we touched upon this, and Darren made that point earlier, which, again, I want to put out there, that set pieces will, again, dominate a lot of discourse. But teams are allowed to score from corners and free kicks. And although Spurs threatened from set pieces in general, the bigger issue, again, is that you have 60% possession and only a handful of real clear-cut chances. And the attack is yet to click. We hope it eventually does. But, I mean, Ange Postecoglou was speaking after the game to Match of the Day, in which he said, I thought it was a tight game all the way along. We controlled it for the most part and got off to a good start. We didn't capitalise on the opportunities and we were unable to get on top of them. We lost the concentration for a second. We've got some big guys in there who really attacked the ball and we just switched off for a second. And I think from that, I've said my piece. Heung-min Son after the game said to Sky Sports that we dominated the game. The football was there. We just really, once again, conceded from a poor set piece. We did it last season, and it is really frustrating. I'm sure the fans are also very, very disappointed. We are getting into the final third, but the players have to also take the responsibility. It is the hardest part of football, making the right decision and being clinical. We will bounce back. There is a long way to go. And just on Son, as Russ touched upon, what has happened to Heung-min Son in regards to maybe this game alone and some of the bigger games? You know, really on the periphery throughout it, floated around the game, but really struggled to make an impact. And again, I will mention that point. When you've got a North London derby and the squad Spurs have assembled today, you need your key players to step up. And we're in a situation where we're bringing off, with no disrespect to James Maddison, one of the key creators for Timo Werner. I think it says a lot of where we are. What we are going to do is we are going to fit in a very quick next break of the show. We've nearly got over 7,000 of you that are watching this show live. I will just say again from the very, very top, massive sincere apologies, huge tech issues that stopped us starting on time, but the wonderful, amazing panel we have here regularly, the wonderful Russ Williams, Darren Hartman, Patrick Tyrant, very kindly stood by us. And like I say, hence us helping, hopefully, bringing the therapy to you. Look, we'll go diving straight into the team and some of the key incidents from the game. Spurs, of course, hosted Arsenal, where, again, all the talk beforehand was of Arsenal missing Declan Rice through suspension, Martin Odegaard as well, along with their summer signing, Mikel Merino. You'll note that even on the bench of Arsenal's, there was no Zinchenko there too. For Tottenham, the good news beforehand was they had Mickey van der Ven, Dominic Solanke back in training, although Ange Postecoglou admitted that Will Lancashire and Richarlison are still away from returning yet. Ibasuma did pick up a knock on his return to the club on international duty with Mali. Again, one to keep an eye on. In terms of the midfield, and decided to use Rodrigo Bentancur alongside Dejan Kulusevski and James Maddison. Up front, Solanke was flanked both by Captain Heung-min Son and Brennan Johnson. And did say on Biss it was a close call. He tried yesterday, but with a tight turnaround after international duty, there was no point in taking a risk. And for those that missed what Russ said earlier, Cristian Romero retweeted a post by Gaston Edel on X, claiming that the defender played for his Arsenal with a fever and was bemoaning the fact that he had to make his own travel arrangements to return from international duty. And just on Romero, I think it's really important we make this point as a guy to touch again. It's another game in which the World Cup winner found himself at fault for a Spurs goal against them. The rest of his performance was fairly fine, but in that crucial moment yet again, he switched off from a corner. Gabriel got in behind him to punish him. And he was pushed, but he was never really getting to the ball anyway. So again, you might look at that and feel, should VAR already have intervened? I'm not sure. But just very quickly, the take on the lineup, if we can. Russ, will come round to you. Any real surprise in terms of that lineup? Is that what you're roughly expecting?
Well, it was a very attacking lineup. I mean, the noticeable thing is when you look at the benches, the difference in quality. And you know what? I know that the club have spent 400 million, whatever it is, in the last 3 or 4 transfer windows at Spurs. But on the right there, and the people on the bench, you can see money has been very well spent there. It's not how much money you get, it's spending it on the right people that fit the way that you want to play. And, you know, they are several years into their rebuild, but I would remind everyone, Arteta won the FA Cup in his first season, had a couple of dodgy seasons, but has never looked back because there's a plan. And the worry is to go back to it, Rick, very briefly. Do we have a plan to play in a way that will, in difficult games, allow us to defend stoutly, do what happened to us today, come away with a 1-0 win at Newcastle or Aston Villa or wherever, Liverpool, There's a thought. No, we don't at the moment because we've got a plan A of playing football, and it seems to be the same. It's, groundhog Spurs, even with that lineup. The first 15 minutes, pretty good. Dominic Solanke had a chance, and I think really, if you're a top striker, should have scored that, but he didn't. And Ryan made a couple of good saves, but we didn't really offer very much after that, did we? And
No.
I felt we were just schooled a bit, really, even though we've got a team of pretty good players. I felt that we were schooled, and they were quite happy to let us have the ball, and they knew what they were going to do. And, it's what they do, as we've seen over and over again. And we've just got to change the way we play.
Yeah, but we know, I think, Russ, with no disrespect to Ange, he won't change. This is the way he wants to play. He's never changed. But
he might have to, otherwise he'll be leaving early. And from those days at the beginning of last season where everyone was singing his name, and the last voice of Spurs, done the song or the voice of Spurs, and it was all great because we were playing good football, but. We're not playing good football now. We're not winning games. We can't score goals. We're conceding silly ones. The landscape has changed. And even with a commitment for 4 years to Ange Postecoglou, which is the contract they gave him, we know what the people who run our football club at the very top will do when it gets hot and it gets difficult. We just know.
It's easy for them. They just press that panic button. Max says here, wages at Spurs are a major problem. They can't compete if you don't pay, but probably more pressing is with Ange and his inflexibility. Arsenal changed it up and beat us easily. It's a result-based business. Frankly, Tottenham says, play a 3-5-2. That way, Son pairs up with Solanke up front. Porro and Odegaard are really wide wing backs, and Radu Dragusin is good at aerial battles. I mean, just on this point, about a plan, I think he has got a plan, Russ. The problem is it owes only just one way. And I think that could become his detriment. And it'll be interesting what he does do in terms of the upcoming games. I mean, Dow, I'm going to bring you in. But before I do, just a very quick summary of that first half, because, again, time is pressing against us. Dominic Solanke, to start with, enjoyed a real busy home debut, to say. He had at least 4 occasions where they won the ball up high, created overloads with relentless and smart pressing, but they're really unable to make those positions too often, dithering in possession and allowing Arsenal to regroup. He had an early shot that was blocked. Again, you maybe feel fit Dominic Solanke gets it out of his feet, gets it on target. But again, a decent block from Saliba at the time. And like I say, those first half really chances were, you'd say, although they came along, they weren't really generally clear cut. And there was a first moment of danger for Arsenal, and they could have easily been one up. First, Vicario saved really well from Havertz, a header. He actually touched it onto Romero's hand, but it was clearly accidental before Martin got in behind Porro, but shot straight at Vicario. Then Odegaard was booked for a foul on Saka. He started brightly before picking up that yellow card midway through the first half, and that seemed to take away his impact as the game wore on. And Solanke did do well to get to a Maddison deep cross as the ball looped just wide of the left-hand post with Raya scrambling. But I think the main topic from that first half down that we're going to try and discuss and dissect very, very quickly for those that weren't at the game and weren't aware of the issue was the moment in which there were yellow cards for Timber and Vicario after coming together. And it was sparked by Timber's challenge on Porro before him. And Vicario then, whatever you think about it, was pushed by Timber, which resulted in both sets of players flooding in. And a classic derby moment maybe feel killed the momentum. But Vicario was booked for having his shirt grabbed by Timber, who was booked for the original foul on Porro. Timber, then it appeared for images that people watched the game squared up to Vicario. Vicario gets a yellow, but there was no second yellow given to Timber. So if we can just quickly break these down, Dal, for you. This is a still freeze, of course. It's not a natural time thing that we've got here for copyright reasons. But from what you're seeing here for these images, Dal, is Timber a very lucky man to still be on the pitch after he's made that tackle on Pedro Porro at the time for you?
You know what? With VAR, when you do that, what is on the screen right there, it looks horrendous. However, in real time, it wasn't as serious as people have made it out. He did a weird thing because he stamps on the ball, And when you stamp on a football, your foot's always going to go forward. So you're always going to end up, your foot's going to go towards the player on the other side. So it was a weird choice to make. And he did go aggressive. It wasn't overly aggressive. I know that's how they broke it down when they looked at the studio. It wasn't an over-aggressive action. The bit that was baffling for me was Vicario being booked when he got gripped up. I was like, hold on, a man grabs you up and you get a yellow card. Don't make no sense. Yeah, there you go. That makes no sense. However, if it was the double sending off for the tackle and this, I think it would have been harsh. And I don't know what would have happened with the game. And yeah, I just feel it's funny, Rick, like you spoke about the lineup and just like the personnel out there. There was so much quality on the pitch of players who are comfortable on the ball. Arsenal did a low block. They put a lot of men behind the ball with Maddison, Kulusevski, with Son, with Solanke. You're going, these are players here who you go, let's create, let's make chances, let's do it. And I feel that we're talking about our bench and lack of quality people maybe seeing and doubting the young ones because they've not played yet. I'm looking at the starting 11 and going, there's fundamentals that individuals are not doing. And today wasn't about not having a 6. The game was not a game that a 6 was going to be paramount for us because we were dominant. Arsenal sat back and said, if you can't break us down, you ain't scoring. Because we're going to wait for our moment and we're going to hope that we get a free kick or an overload at some point and Saka gets a moment. Saka was null and void today. Like, it was a different game. There was a different tactic out there. And when Arsenal did their low block, Kulusevski, Maddison, Son, players like that should be in their element going, I want the ball. Give me the ball. I'm going to move players around. I'm going to get in the little holes and in pockets. I'm going to make space for myself. And that's where my concerns are. I'm not looking at Ange right now because tactically it was there. You could see what they were trying to do, but it was never executed well enough. Dominic Solanke had played 2 games for us and hasn't had any service. Like, I can't judge a striker who's getting no service. It doesn't make sense. We can't hang him out to dry. People are comparing him and Richarlison already. I'm going, give him service. Put the ball in positions where he can go for it. You're right, Russ. That first chance, for me, was a man who was like, oh, my first touch ain't quite there yet. Because that's what it was. He never got the first one out of his feet well enough to hit it first time. That's what he wanted. Touch and shoot. He never got it. After that, he was chasing his tail, but he was never presented with a good enough opportunity to set himself free. Because as a striker or any player, when you have a moment like that, you want another one quickly. Give me another chance. And he never got it. That one header where he was falling back on himself, that's about it. And that's not good enough. But for us as fans, that's not good enough for the team. And we've got to do more. We've got to do more in that area.
Yeah, just very quick on this incident, which was one of the key ones that maybe would affect the game. Pat, coming over to you, when you look at those cut the stills alone, and again, Darren, you're right. You know, for the benefit for those that would watch that live, maybe you would definitely say that Timber definitely does get the ball. He does get the ball. The question is whether he does go through Pedro Porro to do that. And then normally the thing is, Pat, when 2 players go head to head in a scuffle, they normally both get booked. Now, bearing in mind, Timber had been booked but wasn't shown the card at the time. It could have easily been 2 yellows for the Arsenal man. Do you think on that basis, Pat, he's very lucky to still be on the pitch, or are you in Darren's camp for you?
No, listen, I love Darren, but I disagree with him. I think Timber should have seen red for that. Curtis Jones against us last year, he got sent off for something like that. I guarantee if Romero did that same as that challenge, his reputation will precede him and he gets sent off because he took the guy's shin out, as in Pedro Porro. And again, after that, obviously there was a bit of a melee and a hoo-ha, but Jurien Timber then grips up Vicario aggressively, and that is a definite yellow card. If Vicario gets a yellow for that, then Timber should as well, surely, because it was definitely the same. Well, Timber was the aggressor. So realistically, by the letter of the law, as they keep saying, letter of the law this, letter of the law that, Timber should have walked. He also was fouling throughout the game, didn't get a second yellow. Jared Gillett was the referee today. Ironically, he's Australian. And he just was so trigger happy. Bentancur got a yellow card when I didn't understand why he got one. Kulusevski got a yellow card and he pointed at 2 different occasions. Both of them were fouls, never serious enough to get a yellow card. And it just seemed like he just wanted to give our guys yellows and get our players booked. The stats say it all. I think we, if I'm looking at it here, fouls committed, 13 fouls. And then we had 5 yellow cards. In a normal game, that's insane. In a North London derby, that is mental. And it wasn't even that kind of game. It didn't even have needle to it. There was no need
No.
for a referee
Very
to
trigger
be
happy, as you say,
happy.
Pat.
Yeah, like it just didn't make sense. And I just don't understand how Timber didn't get a second yellow for that. Even if you don't give him a red card straight away for the tackle, then definitely that should be 2 yellow cards then and there. But it's not one of these things where I'm on a referee witch hunt. Even though the referee wasn't good, we should have had more than enough to at least get something out of that game.
Yeah.
And it is frustrating, and the guys have touched on it, and we've all touched on it. I just think at the moment teams will happily sit back, and it's all well and good having 80% possession, 76%, 72, whatever it is. But if by the end of the day, at the end of the 90 minutes, you haven't really tested the goalkeeper and done enough to score and win the game, then it just means nothing. And that's what I think teams will do now, because they've sussed us out. We aren't really until we start scoring in the bunches like we did against Everton, against the better teams, then most teams will back themselves defensively to see us out and then hit us on the counter or hit us on a set piece. And every team concedes set pieces and corners. They do. But we are fragile defensively and we can't keep a clean sheet. And that's why it's costing us. So if you can't keep clean sheets and you're not scoring goals, ultimately you're going to lose a lot more than you win. So that is something where Ange needs to take a look at himself. And I keep seeing people saying, oh, he's never going to change. There's only one way. Mate, if you don't change, then you're not going to last. I'm sorry. That's just the reality of it. Everyone has to. Every Pep Guardiola wins the Premier League pretty much year in, year out. And even he tweaks himself and adapts at the beginning of the season and they do something different. Even Arteta, I hate to say it, this guy's adapted and tweaked things year in and year out. That's what the good managers do. And this was my concern when he was appointed. And, I had people saying, oh, you're being disrespectful, because of the leagues that he came from. And my, reservations back then were in the Champions League against the good teams. I didn't see enough from Ange Postecoglou to fill me with confidence. Lo and behold, we're 18 months into the cycle, and against the top teams, as in the Champions League teams, I still feel exactly the same. Other than the Aston Villa away game, that was a fantastic result, by the way, 4-0. None of us saw that coming. I've not seen us do anything really against the big teams, the good teams, to really say, yeah, okay, I can see us going toe-to-toe. Newcastle away this season, we played well, but ultimately we lost. So I just need to see a bit more in that. Obviously, the games come thick and fast. This one hurts. Of course it hurts. To lose the way in the manner that we did, I just didn't really see. If you lose a game, cool. But the way we lost today, it's almost like we went out with a whimper. We didn't really lay a glove on them. And if they're going to be aggressive and they're going to foul and this and that, then we need to do it 10 times more. We didn't really test the keeper. We just didn't really, I don't know. We were just really lackluster today. So that's what annoyed me the most. And then when I see Ange's presser and he's just saying, oh, yeah, he just, I don't know. Something just seems off there as well. He just didn't, I don't know. It's a weird one. And I just think as well, this is probably my last point. At the moment, Ange isn't getting the best out of most of our players. So that is something that needs to be addressed. We're not seeing the best of Sonny. Brennan Johnson, who he insists on playing, you're going to insist on playing the guy, then I need to see something out of him. Bentancur had a decent game. And I agree with Darren when he said, we've got all these creative players that need to do something. I didn't really see anything from the likes of Maddison. Kulusevski looked okay in moments. But again, I didn't see much from him. Solanke, it's a bit of a shame because we didn't really create much for him. But again, bit rusty, didn't see the best out of him. We need to see something. Udogie looked okay, but again, I think Pedro Porro probably was our best attacking force today. He looked quite good going forward, defending well. I think he had a good game. But yeah, we just need to see more from these guys as a collective. Otherwise, we are going to struggle this season. And I don't want to see that, man. I need to see us progress and get better. But at the moment, the possession looks better. But other than that, I'm not really sure where we're going and what's going on.
Russ, I need to come to you just very quickly to make sure, guys, just timing-wise, are we okay for another 10? Is that okay? 10, 12? Is that okay? Russ, just giving you a heads up. Thank you so much, guys. Just double-checking time-wise, because it's running away with us as it would always do during this show. Russ, very quickly, just on the instance for you there, as we've touched upon, it may feel that was a game-changing incident in that first half. For you, was the right decision made with regards to the fact that, in the end, it ended up with a yellow for Vicario and Timber remaining on a yellow and it not going to a red after that scuffle with Vicario? Was that the right decision for you on that very, very quickly?
On that second incident, yes. On the first incident that we saw a moment ago, that one, I think he's a very lucky boy to stay on the pitch, personally. Could easily have been red, that. Could easily have been a red. But, you know, there was 9 yellow cards in that first half on what has been a record weekend in the Premier League, apparently. 60-odd cards, yellow cards, and 9, the most ever in the first half of a Premier League game, our game with Arsenal today. So, look, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Would it have changed the game? Who knows? The fact is that we lost. What's interesting, looking through a lot of the comments, and there's a lot of passion, Rick. You know that. You know it. A lot of people are asking the question. I think it's a very valid one. Has he lost the dressing room already? And, you know, it might be a bit early for that, but I personally think we'll have a good indication at the Coventry game.
Well, you know, the only reason on this point, Russ, and I know we don't want to digress too much because we will go veer off track. The only thing I would say is that when I look at that performance today, that to me does not look like a team that are not playing for the manager. I think this is only my personal opinion. Not yet. I think that team for me is playing for the manager. Do they all know what they're meant to be doing? That's another question. But I don't see a lack of effort. I don't see a lack of commitment or desire. Am I concerned tactically? Yes, I am concerned tactically. And those know I'm concerned tactically. Listen, I can't kid a kid, all right? Those that have watched this show over the last how many years know me and know how much I am normally a very positive individual. But I will be kidding you all right now, as much as I love you all for you guys coming on and for the wonderful things that we get, if I can't say that I'm not concerned at the moment, because I am concerned. And you mentioned a point there, Russ. You know what's funny? I think when you look at Pochettino's start to his second season, which I wanted to actually say for the end of this show to kind of give everybody a bit of a pick-me-up. We had a very similar start to Poch's second season, but we ended up nearly winning the bloody league or in that kind of race. So, you know, it's not all downbeat right now. I think the reality is that there are certain things that for me are reoccurring traits that I don't see we're learning from. And for me, what I wanted to see in the second season, just for me, was that we are learning the lessons of last season. And that, for me, in the pit of my stomach, is what is massively concerning me. Are we learning those lessons? I mean, look, we're going to half-time, 0-0. And actually, Russ, you mentioned the point there about the yellow cards. One more in that first half, and Spurs would have got a 25k fine from the FA. Yeah, trigger happy. No, he was. Incredible. He's actually an Aussie head teacher. Pat brought up about that referee. Kulusevski actually, at one point in that end of that first half, won the ball back, but Johnson's shot from a tight angle went over the bar. But yeah, in terms of that first half alone, 68% possession for Spurs, plenty of good moments, 7 yellow cards. As Russ said, a new Premier record set to date. Jorginho then become the 8th player booked. And, you know, it was only 6 more to equal that Premier League record that we touched upon. But in terms of the second half, and we'll discuss the goal very quickly because, again, we don't want to deviate too much given the nature of this show. The set piece, once again, did the trick for Arsenal, as it did in the previous season. Now, you know, Saka with a superb delivery. Gabriel rises highest above Romero from 4 yards out. And, you know, the thing is, coming over to you, Dal, Spurs actually dealt with corners actually really well until that point. But there was a celebratory feeling amongst Arsenal as soon as that corner was given. It was almost like they were smelling there was opportunities, despite Spurs actually defending quite well to corners to date in the game itself. Although Vicario was flappy, as I touched upon. Gabriel really bullied Romero off that. So frustrating because if any, I don't want employ you to go and watch the game back, but Vicario is actually trying too busy to push away an Arsenal player. Actually gives him no time to be able to then save the header, which results in the goal. Dal, thoughts on that goal for you? I know we just want to discuss this once and never talk about it again. Thoughts on it for you, Dal?
Yeah, it's one of those ones that you look at and go, it can be avoided. Pick up your man, it can be avoided. Vicario was, as you say, very occupied with the players in front of him and didn't give himself that second just to go, it's 4 yards out. That ball's coming, it's 4 yards off his line. So you need to be sharp. You need to be aware that that ball's going to come at, if it comes off anybody, it's flying at you as a goalkeeper. So yes, you have got bodies in front of you and he's pushing. You need to get your hands ready because you don't know what's coming your way. And that's the sad thing about it. And as you quite rightly said, Arsenal were excited for any corner they got because they had set their team out very differently to normal Arsenal, whether that's respect to us or the situation they found themselves in with their personnel. But they were not the free-flowing, high-pressing, attacking Arsenal that a lot of Arsenal fans would have been hoping they were going to do and hoping they were going to play against us. But they changed their tactic. They sat deeper. So when that corner came, that was the moment for them. And I think as Spurs players, we got to be aware of that as well. It wasn't about Spurs are weak at this moment. It's going, this is where we're going to capitalize, because these are going to be the moments we're going to have. We're not going to spend a lot of time in Tottenham's half. We're not going to be camping in their box. This is when we have to make it count. And they did. And I think that's testament to them. And that's stuff we need to look at. When the moment comes, we've got to make our moment count. Kulusevski had a shot from distance that was probably the only moment where I leapt out my chair and thought, oh, is it going in? Other than that, there were players who didn't take their chance, or more importantly, didn't try and create a chance for themselves. Didn't take the game and go, I want the ball. I want a moment. I'm going to do it. And I think people spoke about losing the dressing room and stuff like that. For me, I'm not here for that talk right now about losing the dressing room. Once you step across the line, you've got a job to do.
You're playing for yourself as well. You're playing for yourself as well.
And that's where I was going to go, Rick. It's about you now. What do you do to show you, to show your people, to make yourself proud? There was a lot of big talk before the game of, we know what this means to the fans. We know what this means to everyone. What does it mean to you as a player when you step across that line and do your job? Madison has not completed 90 minutes for a very long time. There's got to be a part of you going, I'm not good enough right now. I'm not performing well enough right now. Why? What do I need to do? Sort your game out. And I think there's a lot of that where Wednesday is getting more important for us as a fan base. But as a player, I would be like, give me Wednesday. I want to play. I need to get back on that pitch. I need to show more. Don't be scared.
Me as a fan is like, I don't want Wednesday to come.
See, I know you're running from it.
I'm terrified.
Be there, Rick. I'll give you a hug. I'm here for you.
I know, bro. I know. But Wednesday can wait as long as it possibly can. It can wait, I can tell you. Pat, I want to come over to you just on that set piece. And look, it does feel like every point we lose from a set piece now becomes a massive mark against Ange. And you know what? Yes, Vicario has to do more in terms of the build-up. And 14 months on, Pat, this set piece issue is still costing us. Again, I will revert back if I can to what Ange said in his post-match presser, because he got very defensive. He said, look, in terms of set pieces, we've handled them okay. Arsenal, obviously, a big threat at set pieces. It only takes one. It wasn't just Romero. A couple of others switched off. The delivery was spot on, and Gabriel is always a threat in those situations, and we paid a price for it. Pat, are you as terrified as what I am every time a corner goes against us, despite us not conceding until the hour mark for that set piece?
You know what? No, I'm not. I thought the irony is we conceded from a set piece today, but up until then, I thought we was handling them quite well. And even in this game, Arsenal got some monsters in that team. Saliba, Gabriel, Havertz. These guys are all like 6'3", 6'4", and they love a set piece. Thomas Partey's another unit. And we did quite well up until, obviously, but all it takes is one, like Darren said and Russ said. And then, you're back to this set piece narrative. Vicario definitely needs to get stronger. I agree on that one. But I don't think it's as bad as everyone's making it out to be. But the only way we move forward from this is to keep a couple of clean sheets, and then people will move on to something else, because it is an easy cop-out at the moment, but we're not covering ourselves in glory. I mean, we've got centre-backs that keep switching off. We're allowing defenders or runners to get the run on the jump on their man, and then it's very easy for them to make that contact. And the frustrating thing is we're not doing that on the other side. We had more corners than them today, but never once did we feel that we threatened their box or their keeper from our set pieces. That needs to get better. So, it's only as bad as they say you're only as good as your last game, or it's only as bad as your last, goal conceded. And of course, today we've lost off as a set piece, which is really frustrating. It's really annoying today because we couldn't score. So at the very least, keep a clean sheet. You take a point and you move on. I would have taken a point in hindsight, but to lose the way we did, it's frustrating. It really is. And we need to get better at it, because obviously, teams will just crash our box and just really try and upset us in that way. Definitely it needs to be worked on. I hope Ange is working on it. He's tried to bat it off and say, we don't need to work on it. Then he said we are working on it. Now he's saying it's a heavy load to burden, or whatever he said today. Like, just be consistent and just make sure the guys are working on it. You know, we meant to train 5, 6, 7 times a week. Work on it, man, because at the moment we are very susceptible on corners. And I don't know, these guys are all very intelligent. Well, I hope they're very intelligent players, professionals of the highest caliber. Just get it right. And maybe if that means bringing in Dragusin, then bring him in, you know, because that guy is a beast and he's really good aerially. And for what it is, Mickey van der Ven is tall and he's a fantastic player, Romero, but they're not that great clearing their lines or clearing the ball aerially. So something's got to give there. I don't know, like, it's not as difficult as we're making it out to be, but also, you know, it's not that complicated. Football is a simple game, isn't it? But we just seem to make it very more complicated than what it needs to be at the moment. We just need a couple of wins. We need a couple of clean sheets, and then hopefully this will all go away.
Totally agree. Before I'm going to come to Russ. I'm going to look to summarise and close. Russ, I have to ask you about the set pieces, and you look at again the fact that it's not a nice stat out there that in terms of that one, the latest one we conceded, 3 of Arsenal's last 4 Premier League goals against Tottenham have now been from corners. Only 3 of their previous 88 North London derby goals had been from corners before this. The Gunners have now scored the most in the Premier League from set pieces since the start of last season, 23. It really is the Nicolas Jova effect. You know, we said that point, and again, I'll make that point, that bizarrely, even though Spurs dealt with corners really well during that game up until that point, as Pat said, Arsenal fans celebrated like mad when they won that corner. And maybe that tells you all you need to know. Yes, they are good at corners, but they know maybe how bad, when you look at last season, we were defending them. And, you know, we can have all the possession in the world, but if we can't defend from set pieces and we're not scoring goals, it is a massive, massive problem. I know Gary Neville said beforehand, you could smell something was coming. Andrews dismissed the idea of a set-piece coach. We saw, of course, that post-match presser where, again, very animated, Russ, about the fact that we are training at set-pieces and corners, and why wouldn't we be doing that? We are doing that. We saw his passion in that presser. How much of a concern is it for you, Russ? Where are we with this?
Huge. And Arsenal won that corner because Saka actually did pressing, you know, which is something that I feel has gone a little bit from our game as well. But set-pieces, you know, they are a massive issue and were for a very large part of the second half of the season. Not only in terms of conceding goals, but we can't score from them either. I mean, back in the day, of course, when we had Harry Kane, he was usually the first man to head it away from a corner, but we haven't got that anymore. But we do have players who can do an awful lot better. And I don't know if it's the lack of attention, if it's nervousness, if they're worried about the goalkeeper, because I think there are some issues there with Vicario. Be interesting to see whether he plays against Coventry, incidentally, or whether Forster will get a go. But we do have a massive issue at the moment with set pieces, and until we get on top of it, it's going to be a real trial watching us play football, I think.
Totally agree. Look, just to kind of summarise and kind of finish where that game did end up before I ask the guys their final thoughts and looking ahead to Wednesday. Sarr and Odegaard came on respectively for Bentancur and Johnson. To be fair to Odegaard, look, he huffed, he puffed, but wasn't able to find a way through. I mean, Sarr showed elements of some mobility that maybe Spurs were lacking. Bentancur played well on the whole, but after that first half yellow card, it felt it maybe slightly hampered him not long after that hour mark. Look, Brennan Johnson said it so much on this show with Brennan. I've always said I think Brennan's going to be a decent impact sub. I don't think anything more of that at the moment. I really want it to work for the kid, and I feel for him. But he got up and down the right flank, running at Timber constantly, swung in a load of crosses while having a couple of opportunities himself. One that obviously went over the bar. But it is really frustrating at the moment for him. And I think, again, we look at our frustration at the moment. You know, you've got Werner coming on in replacement of Maddison. And with no disrespect, the commentary was talking about the fact Spurs are looking and are really lacking quality. And I see Timo Werner come off the bench. You know, we're subbing on Werner for our vice-captain, who was the only creator, whilst Arsenal was subbing on Jesus and Sterling while they're winning 1-0. And I think this is, again, the difference in golf in terms of what the clubs can bring on in terms of the bench. And I think it gets to a point where, with no disrespect to Werner, I think I'd rather see Mikey Moore come on. I'd rather see a youngster be given an opportunity, be given a run of games. There's no disrespect to Werner, but I feel like we know his limitations. I know he's here for the end of the season, and we've got to get behind him. I mean, James Maddison, you know, the guys have touched upon it during this show. He had some bright moments, including that cross to Solanke in the first half, but It is really worrying that either he can't finish 90 minutes or Ange does not believe he can make the difference in 90 minutes. That is the concern I'm with James Maddison. And that's a player that I think when he came off, he looked really, really frustrated. And again, it goes back to that point Russ said earlier. Is the buy-in there from every single one of those players? And I think that will be a key question that will be coming a lot on Last Word on Spurs in these upcoming games. There's a lot of noise at the moment. There's a lot of hysteria. There's anger. There's emotion. There's passion. There's desire. But the most important thing of all that we mustn't forget is that we all do want the same thing. We all want success. We all want to see this club win trophies. We've all got our way of how we want to get there. And nobody's wrong in their interpretation of how to get trophies and get success. We've tried every bloody way. We've tried every way. We've tried disciplinarians. We've tried winners. We've tried managers that are trying to find their way into the game. I will just say very quickly, credit to Van der Ven. I think he was Spurs' best player on the day, best defender, mopped up everything, got behind the back line to ensure a number of times Arsenal didn't break. But just to close and give everybody a final chance as we look to close the show, this is Tottenham's worst start to Premier League season since 2015-2016, which was Maurizio Pochettino's second campaign. It started with a defeat, which was followed by 3 draws, but Spurs ended up in a title race before they subsequently finished third. I want to try and finish the show on a good omen. I don't want to drain everybody. We'll go to Russ, we'll go to Pat, we'll close with the Hartman. Russ, unfortunately, mate, I'm sorry. You're back with me for Brentford at an earlier start time, I may add. At an earlier start time, I may add.
Right.
Russ, what do you need to see now in this next week for Spurs? It's a big, big week for the club. Carabao Cup on the Wednesday against Coventry. Brentford at home on the Saturday. What do we need to see, Russ, happen in these next 4 or 5 days for you?
Need to see him play with pride, with some belief, which will be difficult. We need them to, score goals. Hopefully get a couple against Coventry if we're lucky. But they're going to go set piece heaven, aren't they? Coventry, we know that already. Just play like some of these players can play. We haven't got the perfect squad, but they can do better, really, on a more consistent level. And if they can't, then the problem that some of us think that we've ultimately got there deep in the DNA is only going to make it worse. So fingers crossed. But Coventry's a big, big game. And I'll be here after Brentford. And fingers crossed we've won that game. But that'll be another tough one. So, but it's disappointed today. But we have to be realistic, Rick. Yeah. Better team won. As I said right at the beginning of the show, anybody who thinks that we're as good as or better than Arsenal needs to go away with the men in white coats or the women in white coats, because we're not at the moment. It's just a fact. But to get to where we've got to get to, we've got to stick together and we've got to take the pain. And that's where we are now.
I mean, poor me and Patty are wearing as close to white as possible. I've got blue, Pat's got white. I just want to say quickly, Russ, mate, thank you so much. It's been a tried and tested evening, not just on the results side, but on the tech side. So we can't thank you enough. You're a star.
Side, yeah.
You're a diamond.
You were good, Rick. I've never seen you panic so much, probably since the twins were born. But anyway, there you go.
Do you know what? My whole life's a panic, and I'm a Tottenham fan, Russ. Can you imagine what that must be like? My whole life's panicking. My whole life's a panic. Yeah. You're a star. We love you. So do the audience.
Pleasure as ever.
We'll go to Pat. We'll close with Dal. Patty, look, you are smiling. It's been a tough week. I always say this show does provide an element of therapy. It does, and we're blessed to have such a wonderful, amazing audience that do tune into this show week upon week and come back for the catch-ups. Pat, what do you need to see in these next 5-6 days to feel that we are on track, if you can feel that at the moment?
Some attacking intent, conviction in front of goal. I don't want to see powder puff shots like Brennan Johnson blazing the ball into Rosette or taking P-rollers that the keeper's going to save. I need to see some actual attacking quality in that final third. And I need to see some clean sheets, man, because at least that way you're not going to lose the game. But ideally, 2 wins, 2 good performances, some clean sheets, and something to build off of, because the performances were good going into this game. Yes, we lost against Newcastle, but the performance was good. But to lose at home today the way we did and not really go for it, it's really lackluster and it's disappointing. And I just need to see a bit more from Ange now going into this. And also like-for-like subs, that's what I would say. Like, if you're taking off James Maddison, then I'm sorry, you got to bring on Burwell. You trust him. You've backed him. He's meant to be a wonder kid. Then let us see him. Like, it was a perfect opportunity for him to get on the ball and pull some strings. Why are you bringing on Werner? We know what he can do. It's not good enough, and it's not a like-for-like replacement. Where was the creativity? So just make a bit more sense for the subs. And like I said, some attacking intent and a clean sheet, please.
Pat, you're a star. And bear in mind, this man's patience. He's come in and out of a studio more times than you want to ever know in his lifetime. He'll be DJing next, blessing with Darren at some point. These two on the decks, they need to be, I tell you. Patty, thank you so much. We'll see you, Patty, in a couple of weeks' time. If this show hasn't killed you off in the process, go and check him out. Chatty Patty across the socials. The poor bloke will probably be on a lot of Spurs podcasts trying to defend us in his next weeks. Be kind. Show him love. He's a Spurs fan like the rest of us. Please get behind him. Pat, you're a star. We love you, mate. Thank you so much. You're a diamond. Dal, we'll come to you. We passed the Lee McQueen torch over to you. Oh, Dal, we need something to see us off. You are unfortunately with us for a lot of our Europa League journey, for better or for worse. Russ is out. He's told us that officially. The timings are killing him. You can't blame him. He might make the final if we get to Bilbao. Who knows? Dal, give us something to hold on to for these next couple of weeks to come. It feels like we just need to get back on track, get the fan base in alignment. Can that be done? Will it be done? Close us off, Dal.
You know what? I'll start with this. We've looked at statistically, it's not been our best start. We haven't got the points we'd like to have, and it's looking bad. But look at the performances on the pitch. There is so much that if it goes up 1%, if it just goes up 1%, there's a whole different play for us this season. There's so much to look forward to still. And I think if we sit in the doom and gloom of 4 games and we start throwing players under the bus and we stop believing in this process, all we're going to do is see the negative. That's all we will ever see. We won't see the potential, and we won't see the growth, and we won't see the opportunities that are still in front of us. Wednesday is an opportunity. It's another opportunity for us as fans to back our team and our team to progress. We have to be positive. I know it's hard for some of our fans. I know it's hard because you don't see that, and you're frustrated and you're annoyed, and we want the trophies and we want the good performances and we want to have beaten Arsenal because that's what we wanted. And I get it. I wanted it more. I wanted it too. But right now, we're at a position where Spurs, we have to stick together. We have to stick together. We've got to keep going. This is a process that isn't done yet. It isn't over yet, and we can't pull the plug on it. We have to keep going, and I believe in it, and I believe in us team, and I believe in us as fans. So come on, Spurs, let's not do it to ourselves. Let's not self-destruct, and let's all go work tomorrow and say to Arsenal fans, well done, you got 3 points, now keep it moving. That's all we need to say. Keep it moving. We don't want the dialogue. We don't want the long conversation. You got your 3 points. Well done. Now let's keep it moving. Because at the end of the season, they ain't winning nothing either. Yeah, they ain't winning nothing. I'm telling you now, they ain't winning nothing. Unless Man City get a huge point deduction because of this crazy case. That's the only way they're winning it. And I said it here and I said it with chest. Now let's see what we win. I'm not worrying about them anymore. I'm worried about my team, my family, my people. Let's get a positive season going. Let's start getting a positive energy going. Let's go.
Now, we love you. We need more of you. Not just on all these bloody adverts that you're amazing on. We need you more. We need to see you more, that's for sure. We are going to see you during the season. I know you've missed us as much as we've missed you. I'm not sure based on some of these results whether you will be turning up, but we love you. The Hartman and Norwood duo act will be happening. That's all I will say. They'll be with us soon. I want to say again, a massive thank you. Over 8,000 of you who watched this show live. Russ, finally, Matt, again. Can't thank you enough. Testing times, Russ, but we stick together, right?
Pleasure.
We stick together.
Yes, we shall overcome, Rick. We shall overcome. I'm not sure what year, but we will overcome.
Thank you, co-partner. We thank you so much. Patty, thank you. Dal, thank you. Guys, you've been the last one on Spurs. If all being well, we'll be back for commentary, not at 3 a.m., but hopefully straight after the game if connection and tech allows us to. From Russ, from Dal, from Pat, from me, we've been the last one on Spurs. Keep the faith. And as always,